Good evening and welcome to the Newark Public Library. This program is being streamed live via the Newark Public Library's Facebook page and will be available for review on our YouTube page next week. My name is Ann Schatz and I'm a librarian specializing in business reference at the Newark Public Library in Newark, New Jersey. On behalf of our director, Jocelyn Bowling-Dixon, and the Board of Trustees President, Dr. Lauren Wells, we thank you all for joining us. Tonight, we are pleased to welcome Tamara A. Fleming, who will be interviewed by Kimberlee S. Williams for Taking Stock, photographer Tamara A. Fleming on the business of the photographic representation, a discussion about creative entrepreneurship and photographic representation. Tamara will share her experiences as a photographer and entrepreneur and share advice for new and aspiring creative entrepreneurs. This discussion is the second in the series, Creative Games, Becoming a Creative Entrepreneur, sponsored by the PNC Foundation in celebration of the Newark Public Library's soon-to-open makerspace for creative entrepreneurs called Made at NPL. First, I'd like to introduce our host this evening, Kimberlee S. Williams. Kimberlee is an award-winning business owner whose accomplishments have been recognized by the World Economic Forum, Rutgers Business School, the Star Ledger, and the New Jersey Small Business Development Centers. She has appeared on New Jersey Television's One-on-One with Steve Abudato, and you can hear her TED Talk, The New Majority, on TED.com. Through Kimberlee's experience launching FemWorks, multicultural digital marketing agency in Newark, New Jersey, she realized that the local business environment was not well organized to help competition instead of collaboration among small businesses. Through determination and social savvy, Kimberlee made her way to the tables of power as a change agent, representing the voice of the small business community, determined to elevate Black and Brown entrepreneurs so they are positioned to benefit from and contribute to the city's economic resurgence. And now, without further ado, I'll hand it over to Kimberlee S. Williams.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that introduction, and I really appreciate it. And I just want to say thank you to the Newark Public Library for having the vision and foresight to invest in creative entrepreneurs. And I am so happy to be sitting here with my sister friend and inspiration for many, many years, Miss Tamara A. Fleming. And I'm going to read her bio so that you can begin to get to know her just a little bit today. Now, her name, as I said, is Tamara A. Fleming, and she has a driving passion to create images that positively represent African Americans, Latinos, urban communities, and the LGBT community. In 2020, her latest business venture, PocStock, launched as a global marketplace for licensed stock images and videos featuring people of color. Tamara hosted TEDx Newark Broad Street, a day filled with talks from local Newark-based business professionals and change agents committed to providing solutions and resources to the Newark community as a whole. Tamara is also the associate producer of an award-winning short film called Paris Blues in Harlem, which streams on Amazon Prime, and is the founder of Expose Her, a personal development-based program that uses photography as a vehicle to empower young women and girls with a new way of thinking about who they are and the impact they have in their life and the lives of others in their community. This international program has made many positive influences for young women and girls worldwide, from Africa to Newark, New Jersey to Haiti. And it continues to promote self-acceptance and confidence through photography, the arts, as well as a blend of other resources. Fleming graduated with a degree in communications from the University of Phoenix. She is an entrepreneur that is committed to business growth and development, which is why she co-founded the New Jersey LGBT Chamber of Commerce, an affiliate chamber of the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce, designed to advocate for and provide useful business resources to expand economic opportunities and advancements for LGBT people. And if that weren't enough, she's also the chair of Essex County LGBT RAIN Foundation, which is New Jersey's second emergency shelter dedicated to homeless LGBT youth, young adults, I should say, in Essex County. And she's a Leadership Newark Fellow. She continues to focus on both her personal and professional goals and has completed leadership programs with Landmark Education, Momentum Education, and Discovery U, just to name a few. Please join me in welcoming Tamara A. Fleming to this conversation.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're on. I believe we can hear you.
Can you hear
pretty
me?
well.
Okay. Good.
You are an amazing entrepreneur, and this bio only mentions a few of the amazing things that you've done. I want to learn more about your journey overall and really what brought you to photography as an entrepreneur.
So my journey into entrepreneurial is a very complex one. I can always say that I've never set out to be an entrepreneur. I thought that the road of which you take is going to school, you get a job, and you stay in that job, you retire. And so that's generally been the history for quite some time. Although I did know that my grandmother, my grandparents, they were entrepreneurs when I look back at it. I just didn't necessarily see it as my pathway. But as you know, I was working at a news industry, PR Newswire, for quite some time, and I was managing the photo desk there. And I had access to so many images and photographers that came through that were providing images that the media needed to complete different stories. And at that time, I was starting to get my foot wet with just photography in general. Years before that, I enrolled in a class with Essex County College, and it was a black and white photography class. And that gave me the bug. That gave me the like, oh, wow, this is really cool. It was a perfect outlet for some of the things that I was going through at the time. And I saved up my my income tax check to get my first check or to get my first camera at Hudson Camera in Jersey City. And you couldn't tell me anything after that. I had my camera. I was learning any and everyone that I was able to get in front of my camera. I was photographing them. I was doing everything wrong. But the good thing about it is that I was doing it, you know. So photography, I can say, and I always tell people it wasn't something that I set out knowing that I was going to do, but it was something that chose me. And I think it's kind of ironic that it did choose me in a way, because being in front of the camera, I can understand people's hesitation, their dislike, their, you know, kind of freezing up and getting anxiety in front of the camera. But I felt that it was really good for me to help these people feel better about being in front of the camera, because we could relate on a lot of different levels. When I was younger, I guess I would say like the 6th through 8th grade was that awkward stage. You know, you just like, oh my God, I don't like anything. I don't like this. I don't like that. And so that's what a lot I was going through. It wasn't like I was a part of like the newspaper team or anything like that. It was just that photography became the outlet for me. And it became a way for me to release some of the concerns I had about myself. And going back to being in junior high school, I remember specifically that picture day was the worst day ever. Like, I just hated picture day. I would participate in it, but then, you know, towards the end of the year, you get your yearbook and you're signing in your yearbook and, oh, you're going to be so great. I miss you. I'll see you next year type of thing. What I would do is make sure I had access to a Sharpie. So I would sign my friend's yearbook, but then I would also go to the page where my name was and I would scratch out my face totally or either I would sign so big that it would just totally cover up my face. So I always had some issues and concerns. And I saw that later on, it became ironic that me as a photographer, I'm helping people with their same, issues that they've dealt with when they were younger and allowing them to kind of loosen up in front of the camera. And even when it comes to event photography, because I do corporate event photography, um, it's a it's a total change for me. Like normally, if I'm in a room, I'm probably going to go to the people I know and trust and everything, and I probably didn't even want to go to network. But if I'm shooting the event, it forces you to step outside of your comfort zone, and that's what I did a lot of. Where I was the smallest event I covered is like maybe 500 people. And I'm zooming around, I'm in everyone's faces. I'm like this ball of light. You have to be. So the journey to photography just allowed me to work through a lot of internal things that I was dealing with. And it still encourages me to help others because no matter what, I always say that the CEOs and the people that I'm working with, they are killing it in their industry. But when they fill out my portrait questionnaire and I ask for this piece of vulnerability from them, I always learn something from them that they're just like me. Whether they don't like, they're an introvert. Everyone always says they're an introvert. Like you're on stage, you're doing this, you're conducting major events and venues, and your name is everywhere, and you're saying that you're an introvert. So I know that people turn on and people turn off. And it's my job as a photographer to help them really get out of their mind and continue on to do the work that they do.
Well, who put that first camera in your hand? Was it that camera you bought with your income tax check, or did it go back earlier than that?
Okay, so the person that put the first camera in my hand, I could say, is my cousin Selena. So Selena is 5 years older than me, and at the time, her boyfriend was in Germany, and she wanted to have some pictures taken. I just remember that she always would make me like take my picture, make sure my head is, in frame, and I was always taking photos for her so that she can send them off to her boyfriend. That's the only thing that I can remember as like photography and being interested. But then back then I didn't know if I was getting the right exposure. I didn't know if I was getting her head, in the frame or not, because you had to go send it away and it had to be developed. You get it back and then you're like, oh gosh, my finger was in front of all of them. So it was definitely one of those times. But also a part of my story is that when I was younger, I was in an incident that there was a sharp object that like got into my eye. And from that, I am blind in one eye, I cannot see out of one of my eyes. And it always made me think that sometimes when I was looking at something, I might be looking at something for the last time. I don't know what was going on with my vision. My mom tried everything from like praying. She used to try to make me close an eye and read the Bible. Just keep trying, keep trying. The words are gonna come, and everything that you can think of, just to kind of put that faith into me that everything is gonna be okay. So all of those things, with just my, internal, conversations, my experiences, it's all very interesting of how I am as my own introvert. It's all very interesting that I'm that photographer that's, in the middle of everything. So yeah.
I think it's really interesting. And I really appreciate, first of all, that you are a vulnerable person, and that you've used that as a strength. But I also think it's really interesting that someone who admits to having these, challenges with self-perception would choose photography.
It's funny, like I said, I did not choose it. It became something that I was just drawn to. Looking at photos, looking at how people, the shapes, their bodies, their presence, how you can change with lighting and just manipulate things and working with light in ways that just help tell a story. And all of those things were just really super interesting to me. My grandfather, his goal was for me to be a nurse. And I guess in God's divine order, I went the way that was best for me, which is photography, because it's like a constant opportunity to not only work on myself internally, but also to work with others who may be having their same, on the outside. I'm the go get 'em. I'm the one that's, boss lady, boss man, whatever. But when I'm by myself, I'm still the same, person that might have some self doubt. And so photography just really, it encourages you, it supports you, it elevates you, it empowers you to just keep going and keep pushing yourself. And when there's an issue, thinking not of something is wrong with my lighting or something is wrong with my camera, but like what's up with you, like internally. You can't blame it on the client. You have to blame it on yourself. Like you really have to put your 100% into it, which is why I think it's just such a beautiful thing that there's so many people of color, photographers of color now that are finding this as a outlet, a creative outlet. This explosion of different studios that pop up, or they're turning warehouses in Brooklyn and locally that's not being used. Now there's a place where there's people, access to lighting and ways in which these photographers can create the content and really continue to push themselves into being the next best person that they can be. So it's a constant, consistent evolution of working on yourself, documenting. I guess I never really thought about the fact of the documentation part of it, but when you see that over the years, even with COVID, I've had a few clients pass away, and they go to, hey, Tamara, can I get this photo for, you don't even think about that until like, wow, you are archiving people as they are right now. And people want that, they want to have access, which is one of the things why I never really, I understand, but I don't like when people um, don't want to be photographed in family pictures. They just, I don't want to hide their face and everything. Like, no, you have to document, you have to archive. If you took the family photos when they were 5, also come together and take them again when they're, in their 20s and 30s or whatever, because it's something that is a archive of Black excellence, and it should be documented.
So when you started taking photographs and maybe you started to think of yourself as a photographer at some point, when did you start to think of yourself as an entrepreneur? And was there a difference, between being a photographer and then like, okay, but now I'm like a business?
So that was a thin line, because at the same time I was at PR Newswire, um, that's when I was starting to really exercise my muscle for photography. And the same time I was employed with them and managing their photo desks and hiring photographers, sending them out, on assignment, worldwide assignments. I was also conducting a business. I was sending out invoices for, I forgot what the first iteration was. It was like Tamara, like Fleming photos or something. But I had stacks on stacks of invoices in my computer that was owned by another company. And when we moved from New York City back to Jersey City, Harborside Financial Center, tech support came to me one day and said, we were just updating your computer, but we realized that there are several, like there's a whole business in here and invoices and everything. I think some of the invoices were like the African Globe Theater. So it was going back for a while, but I got on probation because of that, because you're not supposed to do that. You can't be at a business, conducting business that's separate from what you're supposed to be doing. But a lot of people do that. Entrepreneurs, you got to do what you got to do. but just can't get caught from it. But honestly speaking, I was juggling, a couple of different things and also learning. But it wasn't until you and I became business partners that I really started to look at this business thing like, oh, okay, there's a lot. I mean, I just remember days on days and days of planning and putting everything together at that time, even with Jackie, it was the three of us and then the two of us. And it was just like, it doesn't stop. It does not stop. You have to really have all your ducks lined up because you have to be prepared. You have to be ready for that next big thing. And I think that with entrepreneurial ventures, you can either keep it safe or you can step out and say, you know what, I'm going to push a little more. And I think with you were definitely one of those like, I want to push it out because that's why we went from having like a home based business to having a location on Halsey Street, which was the first opening. And that was such a wonderful opportunity. That's when it started to sink in like, okay, wow, this is real, and this is no longer a go to work and get a paycheck for your 9 to 5. This is more than a 9 to 5. This is not 40 hours. This could be 80, 120 hours. Like I'm not sleeping, vising, whatever it is to make it all work. So, but photography was it was still always that thing that was in the back of my mind, in my spirit, and what I wanted to do, even for some time. I hadn't been focusing on that until much later on.
Yeah, I had mentioned to you guys that Tamara and I were business partners for about 12 years in a firm called FemWorks. But I really want to know what you're working on right now.
So in the bio, I don't think you mentioned Tamara Fleming Photography because that is also my business. That's my core business where I work with corporations. Mainly my focus is working on corporations and small business owners and also touching into portrait branding to help tell the story of these small business owners and doing so in a way, some feedback, but doing so in a way that gives, I think my target audience is women specifically, but I do work with men as well too. But being able to tell the story is something that I am always working towards with my clients. And the corporate aspect of like really working with these like larger nonprofit organizations and corporations that's in New Jersey and New York. But then also, in addition to that, Stock, which you mentioned in the bio, is another venture that started and it's very near and dear to my heart. This is something that I can say that I noticed the lack of, access to quality images that accurately represented people of color. Uh, Being from the PR Newswire and Photo Desk, you saw things, but then you didn't see a lot of things. You didn't see a lot of black and brown. You didn't see a lot of good news stories that really showed what's happening inside of these urban communities. You didn't see a lot of positive imagery. It was always, what they even still do now, like they will always find the worst scenarios and the most unready people sometimes to do the news interview. And you're like, damn, why do you have to go, So it's all about representation. We are people of color, very proud people, and always want to put our best foot forward. But Stock was born as a solution to not having access to those images that represent us, from Indian to Asian to Latina, African American. It is the people that are oftentimes underrepresented, misrepresented, and that particular company is all about making sure that the representation is there. So it's a stock photography, but stock in also video. So video clips that filmmakers can use to help support their their stories when they're telling them, and also illustrators to make sure our illustrators that are designing really awesome content make sure that there is color, there's representation that's there. And that particular company, even though it's very new, it is just something that I know that is going to be wildly successful. It's on a really successful track to really make some noise about the fact that a lot of companies are out there saying one thing, but they're doing another. And they need to be educated at the same time, and they also need to be held accountable at the same time too. So we work closely with companies that have diversity and inclusion departments, and one of their focuses is making sure that the company is accurately diverse and is inclusive of all of these missed and underserved populations. And the best way to make sure that you're bringing in and talking to people that you want to have in your company is to make sure that they see the people like them in your company. And it's very common for you to say, see the term, you can't be what you can't see. So it's making sure that you see that you see it in every facet, not just for Black History Month, which is very common, just like what they do with the LGBT community. It's always usually LGBT flag and then a couple that's wrapped in a flag or kissing. And it's like, we do so much more than just, walk around like that, and so we're having families, we are building homes together. We are, creating legacies for our families and our friends, and we're socializing, and we're seeing that there's places where there needs to be more of us represented. People, the industry needs to get more used to not just making sure that they check the box of diversity and inclusion only during those months of like the Black History Month and Pride Month and things like that, or Hispanic Month and things like. We need 365 days a year representation all the time. So when it's a need for a filmmaker, it's a perfect opportunity for anyone that's creating content to have residual income come through, because as an entrepreneur, and this is what we're talking about, entrepreneurs, there will be times when you don't have a phone ringing. There will be times when you're kind of second guessing yourself and you're so much in your head that you're probably stopping yourself from getting the opportunities that's available for you. And so I believe that stock photography, video, illustration is one of those access points to say, I'm already creating content. It's either going to sit on my hard drive and just collect dust, or it could be put on a platform where there's constant calls and focuses on major corporations to come to this platform. They see my content, they download my content. I have money coming in bank, whether it's enough to buy a lens or whether if it's enough to put your camera into repair, whatever it is still coming in. And that's a part of also creating a legacy, saying that I have something that may possibly, it has potential to come in later on down the line. When I'm asleep at night, I still have things coming in. So I'm very passionate about that. Let's start rambling on, but no, I'm very passionate about that because I believe that representation is very important, and there's a lot of companies and people that still believe that the credit, I can give you credit for this and that's good enough. And it's not. Credit does not take care of PSNG. It does not take care
You
of,
mean like photo attribution,
like,
to say photo by?
yeah, that kind of stuff. Like that's not, photo buy is not going to do anything for me. It's not going to pay my bills. Only a check will pay my bills. And I'm starting to see a lot of websites that have their stock and their, photo based or video based, but it's like you can download these pictures for free and use them wherever you want to, because there's such a lack of diversity. We want to make it available. That's what I don't understand, that model. I really don't understand that model, because giving it away for free so a company can say you got the diversity checkpoint does not put any money and any photographers, especially photographers of color, in their pocket. It just doesn't. Pay for what you want just as much as you would pay for another person's, their hard work. Pay for our hard work as well too. And that's where I think that there needs to be more that's done when it comes to um, working with photographers and videographers and illustrators of color, someone that really makes sure that there's equal pay. It's still a very male dominated industry, white male dominated industry. There's still a lot of conferences that are happening worldwide where the whole panel is just white, and it's not right, so there needs to be more people that is on purpose looking for people that are creating this content, because we are working the hardest. We are thinking about all of this creativity. We're adding the spice and the flavor to what it is that the media and what advertising communities want. So pay us for that. Pay us for that.
But hold on here. We need to unpack this a little bit more, because I understand that your business started, well, you've been Tamara Fleming photographer as long as you've been Tamara Fleming. So
Yeah.
you've been that for a long time. But the POC stock business, you said it started in 2020, which was like the year of like consciousness about diversity, equity, inclusion, and
Yeah.
the George Floyd killing. But obviously, this had to be something that was coming before 2020,
Yeah.
and it had to be a gap that you saw very early on or earlier on. How did you start to do photography that had this kind of consciousness to it?
So when it came to POCstock, I have two business partners, Steve Jones and Deshaun Brown. And from what Steve mentioned, he put a call out, hey, I'm looking for a photographer. And everybody's like, Tamara, 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 Tamara. So we had a conversation. We've worked with them, or we've worked with Web Signia before in the past. And when I talked to Steve, he's like, well, you know what? I'm thinking about this, starting a platform that's around stock and kind of like representation. And I felt like, okay, this is right up my alley. So as an entrepreneur, we have ideas and we have thoughts. And sometimes you can pursue your thought and your idea, and you kind of get like a little shifted, a little like, oh man, this is not working, and it's going to sit over here in the corner. So that's what basically happened to me, because I remember also 2 years before this saying that I wanted to start a stock photography company so that I can provide those, access to resources that were very limited. I tried it and I said, "Ah, that's a lot of work. Wow, it is a lot of work." But when you think about it, everything that goes into hosting thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of content from photographers from around the world, that takes a lot of work. I mean, blood, sweat, and tears, long way. It's like late nights, early mornings, and everything else in between. And so I started it independently on my own. And I said, this is something I'm going to park, put it over to the side. And then when I had this conversation with Steve, just like with anything in your life, sometimes if it's meant to be, it's just going to come back to you, and that's how it came back. It came back to, to us to a point that I'm like, okay, this is right up my alley. And it's, I knew it was something that's needed. I know that it's something that it is needed, and it has to be done, and has to be done right. And with the brilliance of those two guys, things started to take hold, even though we had things fighting against us, a pandemic that was not on our side. How does any business thrive and survive through a pandemic like that, So at the same time, when it's about creating custom stock and being in front of people, we can't be in front of nobody. You can't talk and be, so what is happening? So it definitely put a pivot to the launch and the development of really us making like a lot of noise about us being out there. We still haven't technically officially in person made that statement still to this day. And it's still just about the fact that we still have a large network of employees that are very committed and dedicated to the mission and the reason why we exist, and um, having contributors that are also saying, you know what, this is something I can stand behind, because this is not only a company that I can get residual income from, but I like what they're doing. I like their messaging. I like the way they say it. I like why they're doing it, because they are me, I am them, and we have to make sure that this gets taken care of and that all of us are fed. The consciousness about the need was just always there. The consciousness came in with Steve and Deshaun as well too, just knowing that there just has to be something that we can do. The cool thing about it is there's so many entrepreneurs that see things that they can do, they want to do it, but they don't do it. So you sit and you sit with your thoughts and your ideas, and then those doubts and those hesitations come in. You tell yourself, not me, I can't, why, blah, blah, blah. And then it doesn't get done. And then you have the people that said, hey, I have an idea, I'm going to do it. And that's what happens. You just have to keep doing it. And that's the beautiful part of entrepreneurship, but also working on yourself as well too, like really focusing on getting better about whatever it is that you are lacking in, which is what happened to me as an entrepreneur, because I would always question myself, why am I in this room? You know, what am I here for? Like, what is God's plan? What am I doing? Why am I here? And I would be silent and I would listen to everyone around the table. And they're all saying these profound things, seemingly profound, but when it all boils down to it, like no one was saying anything that substantial that you couldn't also say yourself and be included in it yourself. So my conversations in my head had to be silenced. Like, I belong here. You deserve it. You're worthy. You're supposed to be here. You're going to catch on. Make it till you make it. Whatever it is you have to do, keep doing it, because no one knows what's going on inside. So just keep pushing through, and take the steps that you need to take and to better yourself. Whether if that is in communication, whether that is some of those courses that I tell you, like with Landmark, Discovery You, like I've done it. I've walked on hot coals. Yes, you you see the fire and you have to walk on top of it. I've done that. I've climbed up like large ladders and then had to fall, knowing that people were going to be there to catch me. Like that stuff that those experiential processes you go through when you go through those programs, they really make you think like, wow, this is really, those are the blocks that I have. Those are my blocks. I have to get rid of those blocks. And then how they force you to call the person that may have did something to you, said something to you when you were younger. On break, I need you to call that person, call that person. I'm like calling and I'm crying and I'm like, but it helped get rid of the story that you create in yourself, that you are not the person that's supposed to be in front, or you're not supposed to be in the room.
Worthiness, right?
Right. It helps you change your thought pattern just as much as it being around people, the right people that have done the things that you want to do. And we all have the same 20 jobs, although I think Oprah has more. Somehow she made an
Definitely has
agreement with
40
God,
hours in
so
a day.
she got
Don't
more.
believe it.
Exactly. But it seems that she has more hours. It seems that she's done, or most people have done the impossible, but it's just being strategic and just kind of having that drive to, continue to, despite the thing that's on the left, on the right. They can say whatever they want to say. You could think whatever you want to think, but you still just got to do it. And then eventually someone would catch on, someone would believe in you, someone would really want to support you and their efforts. And most people do when they have common interests in you, and or they feel like there's some connection, which is what happens for me a lot of times. Like a lot of the doors that is open for me came from people that met me and like they may have seen something in me and they're like, may whisper, like, as soon as something happens, I'm gonna make sure I call you. I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna bring you to the table. And guess what? As soon as they get these positions where they can hire or where they can put someone in, they call me. So I love that. I love that even about with sisterhood. I love that. Um, I can have friends that are working for Fortune 500 companies and more to say, I want to bring this sister on because they have the opportunity to change the narrative. If you can hire this person and you work with him forever and his work ain't all that good, you're going to definitely start opening up these doors for other people that are just as good and capable of doing this work. And so I think that that's what happens too when you're making those relationships with people. Um, when they get those opportunities, is everybody is working to climb the ladder. So whenever that person is climbing the ladder, they always kind of already handpick the people that they're going to bring up the ladder to. I have the freedom. I'm going to call her. She's a writer. She's a photographer. That's a videographer. These are my team because I know when I bring them to the table, I can go home and go to sleep. I can go get a manicure and pedicure. The job will be done. And that's what people really want. They want that confidence in knowing that the person, even like the person of color that they hire, is going to do the job and do it right. Your insurances are together, your paperwork is together, your equipment is the best, your professionalism, how you show up, and everything is on point. And you make yourself look good as well as a person that is bringing you to the table as well. I definitely don't have a problem with overthinking people that say, you know what, I brought this, I want you to do this and do that. And I understand that. And I make sure I do an awesome job when it comes to that because I know that it can be hard for a person of color, even if they're in the decision making role, it can be hard for a person of color to bring on maybe an all black staff or all female staff or whatever it is and not think that there would be some type of backlash the minute there's a wrinkle on my shirt, oh my god, whatever. They want to have excuses, but I make sure that and I think everyone should just make sure that they are doing the very best they can at all times.
Just sitting here in awe of your story, Tamara, starting from that first camera that was put in your hand
AE1. Yes.
to now creating opportunities, not only for yourself through your business, Tamara Fleming Photography, but also creating opportunities for other entrepreneurs to be contributors, as you called them, to Stock.
Yeah.
I mean, it really sounds like you're living your purpose. I mean, would you say that?
I think I am, even though I say that we people were human and we will always question our purpose. And even though everything looks good, you're still kind of like, well, what about now, new next? And I want something more. And what am I doing? What I think I can probably enhance on in my purpose is the program that I started a few years ago, more than a few years, but I want to bring that more into the focus, and that's expose her personal development through photography. And that's where I work with girls, young girls specifically, to teach them photography, but also to work with them on personal development, confidence building, self-esteem, getting comfortable. I've been working with Link for a while, and it started out, yes, Link Community Charter School. So I've been working with them and teaching a photography program. And initially my goal was, Dr. Scott was there. My goal was like, I want to work with young girls that are, in around eighth grade, seventh, eighth grade, and working with them and just, teaching them and showing them about the camera, and not only just the camera, but because when I share with them that I'm not the person that, although I'm out here speaking to you, I'm even on this stage here, I was a stutterer. I fumble my words. I always got things mixed up, intertwined, and everything. And I was the quietest person in the room for a long time. But when I am a photographer, everybody got to listen. You know, I tell people what to do. So it helps people understand how their vocals have to be better. The way they pronounce words, the way they emphasize, the way they communicate has to be better. In order to get things done, especially as a photographer, content creator, you have to be able to communicate. And you cannot be that shy, timid, like, oh, you just turn to okay, never mind. You cannot, you can't do that. You have to tell them what it is that you want, but you also have to be masterful in how you coach them into that as well, and having them trust you that you know what you're talking about. Because I can come here, it's like, I want to sit on this side because this is the best angle, but no, no, no. In the camera, it's the opposite of that. And trust me, the best light is right here. So trust me, and still, no, no, take it down. Listen to me. So it teaches all of those things. It builds the perfect blocks for being more vocal, being more present, directing, being more aware, and everything. So with that particular program, I would like to, bring more life into it and it impact even more people, because the same students I would end up teaching in that class I've hired were, assistant work, PA work and everything. So, and I'm thinking, yeah, absolutely. With Talk, being able to create custom content on a regular basis, we need people, we need bodies, we need to be able to show them what it's like to produce things, to start from nothing and results are. So I think in that program, I can I can say that I would be super happy when I can dedicate more time to empowering young ladies that are probably curious enough about the project, but still kind of very shy and timid about it as well too. And I've I know you say you want your focus on expose her. I get it, but what about exposing him too? Him too. So expose him, right? So there has been definitely where I'm working with boys and girls, and but I feel like the vulnerability, the conversations that they get more when it's focused on gender, one particular group of people, because their their hesitation may be because of the opposite sex. And if we keep that away from you, and then let him find something to a program that he can focus on him, and then later on, both have chipped away some of those things, and was able to, come to a good point of like getting your personal growth together.
Wow. So okay, I'm just trying to put myself in the shoes of an aspiring entrepreneur, who's a creative and they're, developing their skill as a photographer and what have you. I mean, what advice would you give them about just really how to plan to be an entrepreneur, right? So there's a lot of learning and skills that you alluded to, and it's a lot of hours in a day and it's a lot of expectations, and it doesn't stop. But how did you go about planning for business?
So I think when it came to planning for business, um, the programs that I got access to was a big help. Like one in particular, the maybe one of the first ones was the EPI program, Entrepreneur Pioneer Initiative. That was built to help strengthen the access to resources to grow a sustainable business for first generation entrepreneurs. And being surrounded in that environment gave me an opportunity to really see a lot of it we'd already done, but kind of going back into it again was very educational, and you can see what you could do better. And a lot of the things that I did the first time was um, if it was wrong, it showed me this is the right way to do it, you know? So I think immersing yourself in as many programs as possible, because those programs are designed to help you, empower you, and to sustain you. There's tons of companies that start in just a couple of years, they're no longer in existence because they've skipped steps. And so there are specific steps that you have to take when you're starting your business that you have to stick with in order to succeed. There's some people that can say, you know, like, oh, you know, these people that are billionaires now went to high school, did maybe a semester of college, quit college, and now they're like billionaires. So they're skipping steps, and great, that's good for them. But I don't think that's the same thing for everybody. You still need to kind of like follow the path of the resources that's available, especially if they're free resources. Having your business plan and your marketing plan together, knowing what it is that who your audience is, that's very important. As a photographer specifically, I think I was shooting everything in the world. I had a flyer that I'm just coming to mind. A flyer cover had a, a, a baby, a newborn baby, boudoir, product photography, and a dog on it. And that's my business card. I was giving it out to people. And I really had to understand I have to know what my market is. I can't shoot for everybody. I don't want to shoot for everybody. I don't want to do consumer photography. Sorry. I'm not doing showers and different things. I want to
You don't do weddings anymore?
I don't do weddings anymore. This year I just locked in something, but that was only because during COVID, a lot of things got pushed to the side, right? So now I have to go back in and shoot the ones that, you know, it was just not safe enough to do it. But I would say taking that, you know, very lightly is always like, that's not what you're going to see on my website. You're not going to see weddings. You're not going to see event photography either. But I do corporate, I do a lot of corporate photography, conferences, 5 days, going out of state, doing different things. I do that stuff, but it's not what you're going to see on my site. I only like to stick specifically to the things that I want to see more of. And then working for more publications, which is starting to open up a little bit more for me. Publications that have social justice and like advocacy focuses on that, whether it's environmental or different things. Like I really am happy about the opportunities that's coming to me now, because it's a little different from just the portraits in my studio. But again, it's kind of like when people get to a certain position, they're like, I want her. And even though that executive probably had never been photographed in this way, they're like, yeah, that's that right there. That's what I want. I want her. So I did a walkthrough today for a client that I'll be working with, and one of the lead photographers that's there even mentioned, like, I don't even know, like, he just loves your work, and he just, you know, just take it. I know your style. I know you want to do it. So yeah, I'm happy and blessed to be in those particular situations. But going back to your question, the focus of being strategic and knowing the direction that you want to go is very, very important, as well as giving back as well too. I had two people, I have to say, a person from years ago and a person now currently. Years ago was Dwight Carter. Met him in Costco many years ago. And I learned most of the stuff that I was doing with like corporate and business stuff from him. And he is a just like resource in and of itself, just giving you all kinds of information of how he conducts business, how the industry was for him, and so many other things. And then also too, there's a program that I'm a part of where there's a mentor that they pretty much is like photographers and producers and videographers that are doing really well. They may even be white, have an opportunity to help and support and mentor photographers of color. So I saw this, you know, notice come in my inbox about mentoring photographers of color. And so I looked on the site and I saw all the people that were there saying, hey, I And then I reached out to like 3 or 4 people. One was like a producer. They do like large productions because that's something I really want to do. Really, just from the beginning to end, just knowing everything that's going on to producing whatever, whether it's a large video shoot or a photo shoot. I know half this stuff, but just kind of really have a more formal training on it, hands on. But then I found his name is Jamie, and he's amazing. We spent probably countless hours in going from the basics, like almost from the very beginning, like this is how you turn on the camera. It's kind of crazy. But he's a photographer, Caucasian, and we have some really great conversations about what's going on in the world as it pertains to racism and different challenges that photographers and content creators of color experience to any and everything. And I never feel like it's a rushed call or someone I can't talk to. I really love that opportunity that this platform opened up, and that's what I envision for POCSOC too, being able to pair mentors that are successful in advertising in different forms to also work with local photographers and videographers and illustrators in our backyard. We are housed in Newark, so just being able to pair them up so that there's success all around, you know. And then also too, NGLCC, the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce, they still have programs for mentorship, and I speak to a woman, Diana, like once a month. We check in, like, say, is there anything you want me to do, you need help with, or can I do for you? And I love them, like, well, sure, you can tell me more about this and do more. So I love just having access to people that can do and help support. I think you also are like a constant mentor, from just being able to, you know, we've known each other for a long time, and just I've seen always your drive and ambition. And that's always just been something really meaningful to me. So we can kiki and hang out, but with also just seeing you from a distance or up close, just admiration. And when it came to our business, it was just like, I know it had to be where there's a friendship and there's a business. You know, I'd rather have you as a friend. You know, I want to keep you as a friend because that's what's more important. And that's why I think that we've come to a wonderful spot right now, because um, we're committed to keeping our friendship beautiful and growing and everything else. So surrounding yourself with mentors is, I think, is one of the key things a photographer, videographer, illustrator, entrepreneur in general can and should always do.
Thank you so much, Tamara. I think we both inspire each other, and I won't say how long we've been knowing each other.
don't say
It's been a long time, and you older than me. That's all I'm gonna say.
by a couple of days, a month maybe.
Yes, but still older. Anyway, so I know, I mean, you've described so many entrepreneurial ventures that
Yeah.
you've been a part of. And to what degree has raising capital for any of these ventures been important? And how did you go about raising capital? How did you go about being ready to even raise capital or ask for money? Just the money conversation,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit.
So the money part is very much needed, and for any business that wants to succeed, having investors. I would say for my photography, I never went out to seek capital. I didn't do any crowdfunding or anything like that. I just saved what I could, and also took advantage of having a job and then being able to stash some money on the side to grow and get the things that I needed access to. As a photographer, I stick to only upgrades of equipment and things when it's absolutely necessary. Sometimes people can get into like, oh, I have to have the best, the most current thing, but that's just like getting into that, you know, that spinning cycle of needing the newest car every time it comes out or something comes out, because they just enhance one little thing and they want to, you got to run out and get it. But it's just being very practical. in what it is that you do. As far as POC stock, we're actually going to be kicking off a new like fund, like crowdfunding focus for investors. We did a first one. We're doing our second one that's going to be opening up, and I think it's a brilliant opportunity for people that want to invest in a Black-owned business that is determined to take over and change the way we see and have access to content. I think that it's a perfect opportunity for them. We are going to be working with a local company that will help us put all of our ducks in order and helping with, driving the awareness of who we are, because investors want to make sure not only I'm down with the mission, but also that you guys are going to be able to make this happen. They want a return on investment. So that means that we have to have all of our ducks in order. And that is just in alignment, that is in planning, that is strategy, that is in making sure that you are relentless in like knocking on doors and asking for what it is that you want. Back to Tamara Fleming photography, a big help was around COVID and access to some of the funding that was available for small business owners was essential. It was very, very helpful because at that point, you couldn't be face to face with people, although I did do outside shoots, from a distance. And I also did a really cool project with Mentor Newark, where I photographed, I think, over 40 people virtually. And so I'm home and they're home or wherever we are, and I photographed them. And the images were used inside of the logo. It's just brilliant how everything kind of came out together. And it was but my idea to really say, how are we still able to capture the people in this program safely? Because my big concern was safely. I know I could not bring COVID back to my home because high risk. So I had to be careful and thought about like, okay, well, what about if we started to see how companies were just using photography and so that was very, very helpful. And because Pock stock was fairly new, we didn't have that history to show the paperwork that we needed or to qualify. It was a lot of little things there. But I think that what helped us was really just pure dedication and people that believed in us. And that's what I see as a very successful opportunity in the upcoming investor rounds that's going to be coming out, and where people say, I want to be a part of this. I want to, I want to be in the mix of this change that's happening. And that's what we're most looking forward to.
Y'all heard it here first. There's an investment opportunity
Yes,
coming.
yes.
So get your coins together because this is going to blow up. This is our time, right?
Yes.
This is our time to be represented positively in the world as Black, brown, LGBT people. So I'm very excited about that. Thanks for sharing that. But I'm sure that an entrepreneur would wonder, with all of this amazing work that you're doing, there has to be a team, right? So behind the scenes, really, how did you go about building a team?
So I'll start with Pop Stock. We're building a team there. Again, started with people that were closest to us, that were committed to the mission of representation and what the business stood for. And because there was a little wiggle room in people being able to file for unemployment because of the pandemic, people also were able to say, well, I have income coming in. Now I also have a way to keep myself busy as well and be committed to, this change in this company. So we definitely tapped into people that could, not asking of anyone, if this is a matter of lights on or lights off for you, don't come over here because we can't, but it was definitely one where if you could join our team and be a part of this growing effort to build this company from the ground up. And I think that especially with startups, there's already so many different challenges, but you do have people that are willing to support and really, stand behind you because they know that one, it could be an opportunity for them to learn a new skill. So if you had only been doing one thing and then you were looking at like, you know what, I should also get into like, I don't know, project management. And now you have a startup and they need all and as many hands as possible, then this is the perfect way for you to exercise that muscle, that area of a new direction that you wanted to take but was a little hesitant or that you needed to put on your portfolio or your resume. So this gave them an opportunity to just, I guess, work and get experience and learn and grow and keeping yourself busy and being around a good positive team. We've had some really amazing, strong, dedicated, creative, talented people that were just running full speed ahead, like relentless with any project that you would give them, anything that you had to say, hey, I need this done, I need that done, they would do it without question and was committed. And that's what I'm so appreciative of because you don't get that a lot. You sometimes in entrepreneurship you get people that are doing it but not thinking about doing it right. They're just doing it, So they might help, but it's like, but when you get someone that's really committed to helping and you show that you're appreciative, then that's when you get that dedication. You get people that are willing to stand behind you in your corner. And that's what I think that we got a lot of good access to was people that were just like, this is dope. I want to do it. And, with Tamara Fleming photography, um, what I tend to really do, like I said, is either look at past students. I did some work with teaching with Abbott Leadership Institute and some of those graduates too. One project that we just completed, he was one of the students there, and I know, and he's helping and assisting and also asking questions, and that's what I love. That's what I absolutely love. And I was covering an event at NJ Pack, and this one lady, young sister, I think she was 18. She comes, she said, "I want to be your assistant." I was like, "Okay." And so I hear that, but then it's like, "Okay, you got to show me because I don't want to be the one that's lifting up the bags, and I'm doing more work than you. And you're supposed to be here to learn and do everything." But when she came in, she just was so dedicated and like focused and a little tiny old thing too. And she would be the first one to grab bags. And I just really loved that. And then eventually I lost her because she was like, okay, I'm gonna start my own photo studio in the Bronx. And but it was just building a team of people and people that's if you have or if you're in a situation that you don't want to be in, the best way for you to get out of it is to start to get into other things by having a conversation with, well, what can I help with? Can I do this? Just because it's about learning as well
About
too.
volunteering.
Volunteering a lot of, but if you have the income coming in somewhere, and if you can, because volunteering could even be just like, I know Excel, so I'm going to take these names and put them in a spreadsheet for you and then learn, so volunteering definitely helps. And I like to give people, if you're a young person and you're just starting out, giving them a stipend, giving them some type of travel fee, giving them something is better than nothing. I'm a big advocate, just like with even POC stock, I make sure that I'm like, okay, this has to make sense for anyone that we hire, bottom line. And I think that's the cool thing about, that's why they love me so much because I'm representing the people that are going to help push the company together because, I'm one of those people. So I have to speak up like, no, I'm not a videographer, but I'm in the same boat. So we have to do better. We have to do more. We have to get these companies to see that they have to do better and more. And that's what I think that, one of the things that I like about where I am is that it gives a different perspective. I'm not the CEO. I don't want to be, I don't want to think about this and do this and whatever. Creative is good. Shooting is great. I don't want all the other stuff. And kudos to everyone that can do it. Just kudos. And it's knowing what your lane is and staying in your lane. And knowing that when it's time to shift and pivot is also really, important as well.
Usually that shift comes though, when there's some kind of challenge that you're facing. Can you recall and tell us a story about, a time when there was a challenge that you had to overcome, more so in the beginning of your journey?
So, really, the challenge was just an internal one, right? So you probably like, that's smart, got a lot of internal things going on, but no, it it's in alignment with entrepreneurialism. So with the challenge for me, it was being around people. Like I don't want to be out there in the middle of everybody and all this networking and shaking hands and listening and card exchange and everything that you have to do. That was not something I enjoyed doing at all. I was always thinking about, "Well, what does it look like? Is the lighting good in here? Can so those things are going through my mind, my breath's all of that kind of stuff. Like, oh my God, then you got to listen to other people talk. And that was a challenge, but more so peeling back the layers to that challenge was the fact that I was just getting anxiety and not liking to be, not that I didn't like to be around people, but it just made me uncomfortable. I remember living on a corner of Broad and West Kenny. The building is no longer there anymore, but I had my apartment on the corner of Broad and West Kenny, and it was about going out to do some networking and everything. And I remember um, getting dressed, and I looked in the mirror, and all this like things just started to happen. I was having a panic attack and I didn't go. I just like, I can't do it. I can't do it. So I think it was just so many different things that, was a challenge that you had to step outside of your comfort zone. Really, then when you go through some of these programs, they talk about like getting on a skinny branch and all this other stuff. It really means you have to do those things like exercising these things that help you be a better person. It's not comfortable, but then it's not supposed to be because you get what you want. It's, things will get better, but it is definitely silencing the internal critics that you have, especially as content creators. We are always overanalyzing, comparing our work with other people, thinking another person is better at this or that. But sometimes you just have to stop all of that. So those challenges mean a lot of times when it comes to entrepreneurism is that this is not your 9 to 5. You go to your job and you're comfortable and you get to go home. You have to work when you don't feel like working. You have to work when it feels like no one is calling or appreciates you and your work. You have to push yourself in following up on emails and calls and marketing and learn CEO and learn all of this stuff. You have to get yourself where the conversations start to change in your benefit, because you will always have self-doubt. You will always have, negative critics. And I guess the more popular you get, you might even have people that slide in your DMs and want to say something is wrong. Oh, you over edited that, or that was should have been lit better and all. People always peopling, And so you have to really learn to not let someone else's thing become your thing. But then also if it is your thing, work on your thing. Therapy is a really great thing. I even though I had a bad run with a therapist many, many years ago, I was going when I was working at PR Newswire. I went to her and she was like, yeah. So I was like, oh my God, this woman just fell asleep during our session. And I never went back to her again. But it, again, in my mind, I'm like, Dad, I must be really bad if therapists fall asleep on me. So again, you go through your conversations internally, but at the end, what I'm comfortable with now is having like a virtual, like therapist where she has her video, I have my video, and we can talk. We have our scheduled appointments and being able to set milestones and things that, I want to get better at. Because you can have your friend, but even with friends, I guess even friend Kim too, I'm like, I don't know if I want to talk to her about that. Because what if one day you all on the high, you're feeling good, like, oh yes, everything good. You talk to me, I'm like, I'm doing too good. It's like bring people down. So the therapist, you don't ever really have to focus on bringing her down. So you can just like talk and then get instruction from a expert and someone that's holding you accountable. And also, the other cool thing is what I'm doing now is I joined a mastermind, another group of really awesome female photographers that are doing amazing work all around the states, and being able to listen to their challenges and support them. Well, I'm not supporting them, but just knowing that they're there to get support if needed. And I can't say that I am supporting. So if someone has a question, especially because it's like we're at different stages. If someone is new and starting out, I have no problem with sharing information and telling them what I know because it's been done for me and I want to be able, that's why I'm thinking with Expose Her. That's why I'm like, I really want to manifest something really big and major for that because somebody else got to know how to do it. I want to just be able to like go and do it, and be happy about that. Share that wealth and information, and see the transformation of the person go from quiet, timid, shy to like telling everybody what to do and being happy about doing that. But yeah, the challenges, like I said, they're always going to be there. It's how you decide to uh, pivot from that challenge. Maybe you had a bad day, but tomorrow will be better. I've had situations where you can start shooting and the memory card is not in there. That's everyone's worst nightmare. There's a feature on cameras where you can say shoot without card. So you can hit the shutter and everything, and there's no memory card in there. It's not like an internal memory inside of the camera. So people have done that. I've heard other content creators talk about that same thing. Just recently, uh, I had almost a breakdown, and when uh, there was an event, a major event happened at the Ziegfeld Ballroom in New York, and all of my clients' communication had a title of 427. Everything, the subject line was 427. It's going to be for, I don't know, it could have been like Teach for America or something like that. And they we're saying, okay, it's going to be, this is the date, this is the time, blah, blah, blah. And so the subject line read 427. So I'm thinking, I have my calendar together, everything. I knew Monday I'm shooting this, Tuesday this, and Wednesday, Thursday. Thursday I'm going to be here. So after I finish this shoot, I'm driving over to New York and I'm going to cover this event. And so the funny thing about it is the first shoot I had for that day, when I got there before my client did. And so she was like, she calls me and says, "Hey, Tamara, I'm on my way. Just wanted to make sure, you're good." I said, "On your way?" I said, "That's tomorrow, isn't it?" And so she said, "No, it's today." And so I knew I was already there, already set up. I was joking with her. Little did I know that towards the end of the event, when I was working at this last shoot of the day, um, I needed to get straight to New York to shoot another event. I did not know that because the dates were mixed up. So the client, my second client, calls me up and says, "Hey, Tamara, are you here?" And I said, "Where?" She said, at the ballroom. And I said, "No, that's not until tomorrow." She said, "No, that's today." And I was like, oh my God. And my world seemed to have stopped. So after I called everybody I can think of, see if they can get there and all that other stuff. She calls, when I call her back and said, I'm in New Jersey. There's no way I can be there right now. So she's like, "I see what happened." So the title of the subject line all read 427, but this was from an email last year and it was canceled because of COVID. We couldn't do it, remember? And so I never changed the subject line. And I was like, in my mind, I was like, I'm so glad it's not my fault. Because in my mind, I felt like every Black photographer, every Black videographer is going to reap the repercussions because this woman messed up. And that's how seriously I take being able to be present and show up right, looking right, your hair done, you look good, everything, because they always looking at you. They always, and I'm not saying, like people will look at you and question, how did you get this role? How were you here and how are you there? But just, just knowing that I may have made a mistake. Elaine had to calm me down. I could not talk. I called Lamar up and I'm asking her, can you get over to New York? He's like, no, I can't. I'm like, I could barely talk. I was so in a bad place because to me, like I said, I thought that they were never going to ever hire a person of color again. And it wasn't my fault. I came in there and she just said, just go do your thing because they knew that they messed up. But it still just kind of, you know, it messed with me for a while. Like, whoa, we carry a lot of weight on our shoulders, just for representation, even carrying a lot of weight on your shoulders when you feel like a person of color has this opportunity and we have to represent, we have to show up right, because the excuses is kind of what people are expecting in a lot of ways. So, I don't know if that answered your question, but I can ramble. So
That story got my blood pressure going up. That's one that I could just put myself in your shoes and imagine that my heart would be pounding through my chest. But it sounded like it all worked
it
out.
did. I got from New Brunswick. I was in New Brunswick all the way, went to Orange, and then went to New York in an hour. Like I was speeding. I was calling every photographer that I knew. It was very dangerous. It was very, very dangerous. But I did. And I hired a photographer, second shooter at the last minute because the one I already had was planning to come the next day. Yeah, I called her up. She's like, I'm in shorts singing on the balcony. I can't. So yeah, I was lucky to have a Rolodex of people, but unfortunately, no one was available, and I had to go with someone I'd never met before. But I saw her work. We were like, okay, she know how to. Okay, cool, we're good. I just wanted to make sure she did represent me right because I know that's not my fault, but I know that I still need to represent for us, and so it all worked out.
I mean, there's so many lessons in that story, about controlling your image, about customer service, about being able to pivot on a dime, being able to have a robust network of professionals that you can call on in an emergency or not an emergency. There's a lot in that story, but I want you, and this will be in closing, just any words of advice that you would give an up and coming entrepreneur who's seen all the amazing things that you've been able to accomplish, but they're at the beginning of their journey. Any advice you would have for them?
This is when I wish I was like this person that could come up with the most beautiful, profound words to just kind of seal the deal. But bottom line is just never give up, I guess I can say, and keep pushing through despite what people, maybe their plans for you is different. But if you have a plan for you, to stick with it and to just never give up. That's all. And
That's
covers it.
profound.
Yeah, it's good. I was trying to practice Buddhism for a while, and you know me, I like to explore all kinds of different things. But one of the things that they would always, it's like when it comes to chanting, but then also too, they have this, tag or slogan about never giving up, and I feel like that's such a strong, it's so easy to give up. It's so easy to get turned around and feel like this is not my purpose. I'm still trying to nail down my exact purpose. And that's a spirit of confusion in a way, because like you shouldn't be confused. There's no confusion when it comes to knowing that something is destined, ordained for you in your life or whatever. So take that out of the conversation of the equation and focus on the main goal, and really just trying to get better. So what you give to others, you get back. And that's what I really do see and appreciate. I probably tell people that I get an opportunity to speak to, I'm like, they might have already heard this 1,000 times, but I like just saying it anyway, because if it's poured into you and it's said repeatedly, it must be correct. It must be true. A lot of people of color may not have access to generations of entrepreneurs to model ourselves by. And you have to go out looking for, just like some people can say, they have to look for their family, have to make one because mine is not what it needs to be or whatever. But I think that it's really about, sticking to your drive and your purpose and being confident in it and knowing that um, stuff happens. And I say stuff because my mom is listening. So I could say sugar, honey, iced tea, but stuff happens, but you're still good, staying focused on that. She's one of my biggest, I would say, uh, champions or people that I know I can call my mom up and she prayed for me today. I said, Mom, I don't want my words to get tangled up and I don't want to stumble or stutter or whatever. So she's like, okay, look, I gotta go. But then she's like, in the name of Father Jesus, she do her quick prayer. And then, I feel good about it. And I think that that's important to have, a nice, strong network and the drive to never give up.
You've heard it from Tamara Fleming herself. Thank you. Join me in congratulating her on a wonderful interview and conversation. You're such an inspiration, Tamara. And I just wanted to take this opportunity again to thank the Newark Public Library for hosting Creative Gains Conversation and for being an innovator in New Jersey by creating a makerspace here at the Newark Public Library called Made at Newark Public Library. I hope you check it out. It's going to be opening up very soon. And so I hope to see you around these hallways, building your empire step by step, never giving up, and surrounding yourself with awesome people. And now I'm going to turn it over to Ann Schatz.
Tamara and Kimberlee, thank you so much for letting us hear that inspiring conversation. That was really beautiful. And I think a lot of people will resonate with you sharing your triumphs and fears. And that's so important for especially creative people to hear that and to hear other people's experiences. You're not alone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and again, thank you so much to Tamara and Kimberlee for joining us this evening. And again, this has been recorded and it will be available for review next week on YouTube. On behalf of our director, Jocelyn Bowling-Dixon, and our Board of Trustees President, Dr. Lauren Wells, we thank you for all joining us this evening. And many thanks to the PNC Foundation for sponsoring this event. Coming next Monday, May 23rd at 2 p.m. is the third conversation in the Creative Games series. Kimberlee will interview Marcy Bettina, President and CEO of Forza Media Group and Forza Recordings. And additionally, this Saturday, May 21st from 12 to 5, the Newark Public Library will be a part of Community Day at the Newark Museum of Art in a celebration of hip-hop music, style, and culture. We hope to see you at our upcoming events. I also invite you to follow the Newark Public Library, the Newark Business Hub, and Tamara Fleming Photography on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much for being here, everybody.